This episode may contain some coarse language. Listener discretion is advised.
Coming up this week in work.
You might not be surprised to hear that some of the conversations our HR professionals have had with their leaders are somewhat unhinged. But what happens when an HR professional calls them out on LinkedIn in the best way ever? I will share all very shortly.
Also this week,
hey, it's Rebecca Taylor.
Rebecca Taylor.
Woo!
Yay! I'm so glad to insert myself into this conversation because I need to talk about this. This week, women have made extraordinary gains in the past few decades across the world of work, but are things stalling? Sheryl Sandberg, in her infamous 2013 book, advised women to lean in, but is the lean in generation now leaning out?
And in truth or lie, fun and work don't mix. For generations, work has been treated as the serious part of life, while fun is something you earn once the job is done. But does fun really undermine performance? Well, I've read the research and I've got a verdict.
And in a special HR workplace surgery, one listener asks, what happens if the founder is a bit of an arsehole? Well, we've got a letter here which, honestly, I cannot wait to put to Rebecca and Leanne.
This is Truth, Lies and Work, the award-winning podcast where behavioural science meets workplace culture, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals.
My name is Al, I'm a business owner, and I'm here to ask the questions you might be afraid to.
And my name is Leanne, I'm a chartered occupational psychologist, and I'm here to answer them. We're the co-founders of people and culture consultancy Oblong, and together with our very special guest, Rebecca Taylor, we'll help you simplify the science of work and build amazing workplace cultures.
Just before we go to break, Rebecca, if no one's heard of you, which is very unlikely, someone hasn't heard of you, just give us your 10-second intro.
Yes. So my name is Rebecca Taylor. I'm the head of people and content and community at a company called All Voices. I spent 10 years of my career in HR before quitting my HR job to co-found another HR tech company that was focused on coaching, performance management, and development. And that's how I met Leanne and Al. I crash landed into Leanne's LinkedIn DMs, introduced myself, and now we became friends. And that's my real job description, is to meet people on the internet and make them my friends.
And we're so glad you did.
We really are. We've got much more from Rebecca just after this very quick break.
Rebecca, welcome, friend. Regular listeners will be very familiar with you. You've been on the show a couple of times before. How are you doing, love? What's occurring? What's your week looking like?
Yeah, I'm doing well. So I've been just kind of like settling into summer, I think, over here in beautiful central New Jersey, spending some time at the beach. It's actually been really fun because I live in central Jersey, which is right between New York and Philadelphia, which are two big cities that have been hosting a lot of the World Cup games. So in the area that I'm at, we have a lot of people that have been traveling sort of between the two cities, and we run into them at the Jersey Shore. So we've been hanging with people from Brazil, from Haiti, like all these different like places. And it's been, I don't even watch football, but it's been really fun to just be part of it, even without having to even really know what's going on in any of the games. So that's been my vibe this summer. It's actually been really fun.
I've seen so many good like things on the socials about how well the different fans are getting on and like sharing the Scottish fans, I think, were pretty viral, weren't they?
Hilarious.
For what they brought to the party. But I saw one today that I just thought was brilliant. It was post England-Denmark match, and the England fans had found themselves, it looked like a park somewhere where beer was involved, with the Norway fans, and the English fans started singing, "You're rowing home, you're rowing, Denmark's rowing home," and they were like, "Hey, ooh, hey!" It was so good, like such good, great sportsmanship and just banter. It was brilliant.
It's felt kind of wholesome this year, hasn't it? I'm sure there's been pockets of disagreement, and I think we've all seen little bits of that, but it has felt wholesome, and credit to the host nations for making that like a relatively wholesome place. Whatever's going else is going on.
We'll forget that conversation that happened on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Allegedly. Well, not allegedly. He said it, didn't he? But
forget that.
That wasn't so wholesome. But
everything else, the fans. Yes, definitely. Have you, do you reckon you can kind of like, can you identify fans by their behaviour? Like if it's Scottish or English, are they just in the pub?
Well, the Scottish, definitely. Mostly because whenever I run into someone from Scotland, I feel like I'm speaking to a sim, or it sounds like Simlish, because I'm like, I can understand you, but I also can't, and I cannot quite figure out why. Like just the very, very thick accents. And so every time I run into someone from Scotland, I'm always just like, oh my God, hey, can you just say something so I can try to see if I can understand what you're saying? I don't know. I think it's the reason that we've been kind of like that we know where people are from is because they're usually wearing like a jersey or we'll overhear whatever language they're speaking and then, kind of ask them like, hey, where are you traveling from? And it's been cool because it's a good way to kind of start conversations with people. Like they're here, just trying to have a good time just as much as the rest of us. And I think it's like, yeah, there was that one phone call that like just was not a great representation, but is a very accurate representation of a lot of leadership that happens here. But all the wholesome content is a good representation, I think, of the people. And like, we are not our leaders. Like we have a lot more in common than we think that we do. We really can rally around something that's just like joyful and that feels like it's something you're participating in that's bigger than just the actual event that it is. Like, yes, the World Cup is about soccer, football, all those things, but it's also about this. And that's why it doesn't happen very often. It's every 4 years, right? And it's like, I think it's just exciting. But but you could spot a Scotsman a mile away.
We could hear them.
They're usually wearing traffic cones on their heads.
That's true. And we can say that because I'm half Scots, so I can definitely say that. So in a normal year where there's no World Cup hosted in North America, do you even talk about soccer at all? Or is it like all baseball and basketball? And
what I've been finding is that I have friends who I did not know follow soccer. And they're telling me now that they're like, oh, I watch this all year round. But we had no idea because we just don't watch it together. So it's usually this time of year is like very much baseball. Basketball just ended. Knicks won, go Knicks. But it's usually not that popular in the way that other sports around here are.
I love that. And also, so just to give us, so I've never been to Jersey. I've been to New York once. You've been to Orlando?
Yeah, just Florida, yeah.
Yeah, Florida. I've been to Las Vegas. What do we need to know about? So I
feel like we know America, right?
Yeah,
Florida, New York, Vegas. What else you got going on?
This is where I'm going.
Orlando's also like the center of Florida.
So I have seen like this. I'm sure there's a Twitter account called Floridian People or something, which is some odd things go on. But
Florida man.
Right. Well, sell us, not even sell us, but just tell us what happens in Jersey. What's it like?
It's funny because I call myself an expat living in New Jersey because I grew up in New York City. And there's a lot of friendly rivalry between New York and New Jersey because like we're neighboring states, we're right next to each other. And there's a lot of, you get a lot of people who live in New Jersey but work in New York City. And it's always sort of like this running joke that New Jersey is where you go to sit in traffic on your way to other places. And what or like most people's experience with New Jersey is either like the Jersey Shore, which had a whole television series about it, which I love that show. Or like Newark Airport. So just like flying into, this, airport area, which is, they're never glamorous, right? But what's been kind of interesting is like, so each state in the US has a tagline. And so New Jersey's is the Garden State. And I always thought that was ironic because I'm like, oh, right, because it's oil refineries and the highway and the airport, right? But it actually is, there's a lot of preserved farmland in New Jersey and a lot of the East Coast produce is grown here. So it's actually the blueberry capital of the United States, if not the world. And it's like little things like that I learned sort of like, okay, so there's a lot that New Jersey provides that not a lot of people know about, but I think that's kind of a good thing because it kind of keeps it a little bit more precious that way.
I love that.
What I've liked about it is like, so when I first met my husband, he told me he's from Jersey and I was like, oh God. And I basically like wrote him off as one does. It's, my blood right. That's what I have to do. And then he convinced me, he's like, no, he's like, it's actually not that bad here. It's like nice to live here. And he's converted me. I've been here for 9 years now. I didn't have a driver's license till I moved here. So I got my license just to be able to get around. That's how much of a New Yorker I am. I just didn't drive. And what's kind of fun about it is that it's a small state that you can experience a lot within sort of the actual state boundaries. So you've got the beach, there's a lot of wine country, there's a lot of farmland, and then there's great like tubing along the river, there's mountains, there's hiking, there's a lot of stuff that you can do all within like an hour's drive of wherever you are at any given time.
That's so
and
cool.
so, yeah, it's cool. It's like there's a lot to do but you don't really realize it until you're here, if that makes sense.
Nice. Well, I hope that you're going to go and warn all the local businesses about the burst in tourism that's going to happen after this goes out, because I'd imagine you'd be up many hundreds of percentile points. Anyway, right, we need to go to your favourite time of the week, Leanne. It is time for
It's time for News Roundup. I'll cue that jingle for you.
Pressing that button. Who are we going to do first, Leah? Should we go to you first?
Yeah, you can come to me first. Seen? Mine's a bit sillier this week, a bit lighter, but also not. Rebecca, you worked in HR for 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just ask you on just a round-ish number of the daily conversations you had with leaders where you were like, what the actual? Are you serious? Really?
I worked in HR for 10 years. Figure every workday was around 8 to 10 hours, right? So figure at least once an hour over those 10 years. Yeah. So whatever that round number could be. Thousands of times.
Thousands. Yeah, and I don't think anyone who's worked in HR, next to HR, alongside HR would disagree that the rate of unhinged conversations is pretty high. There is an incredible professional called Emma Jamil who has been on the podcast.
She has.
She's on LinkedIn. Rebecca, if you don't follow her, you need to go and find her immediately. She is incredible. She worked in HR for years. She now helps other HR professionals navigate that entire life and works with businesses as well. She put this on across all of her socials. I found it on YouTube actually, but it's on LinkedIn. But it started with, I turned the messages I get in HR into a house song.
House, as in
as in dance.
I think I've seen this actually.
Have you seen this?
You liked it.
So yeah. I'm gonna play it through the power of technology just in my microphone, so you can hear it. It is genuinely the best thing I've seen on the internet in 2026.
Go.
I don't think it's going to get beaten.
Found someone for the character role. Met them for a coffee, they're a nice bloke. 1, 2 off the top of a band. Can you get a contract out? They're starting tomorrow. No need for references. They're a friend of the CEO. Emma, you've seen this. They're a key hire. Need them to hit the ground running. We sold their laptop. Let's announce them in an email. Draft me something to look at. Need a first thing tomorrow. Emma, got the draft. FYI, we've negotiated hybrid for them. Think that goes against policy, but don't want to lose them. They have another offer on the table. Emma.
I have questions, Leanne. But
just
over
so
to
good,
Rebecca
Emma.
first.
Good job. It's the Emma every time. Emma every time.
And is it Emma actually singing?
Yeah, well, I don't know if she's singing it or whether it's produced in some way. I don't know, but she wrote it. I messaged her immediately afterwards. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And she was like, who knew all you needed to do to get noticed on LinkedIn was write a song?
It was really good.
It's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah. And it's the constant, because it's almost like you start to hate your own name when you're in HR, because it's always people will call you from across the room. And it's usually because they need something. It's usually something stupid. And it's just what? What? So you're Emma, what? What do you need?
And just that as well.
So
I mean,
real.
I've been in adjacent to teams that have had that exact scenario happen where it's we have to make an offer immediately. They're going to get poached by another company. That's oh no, wait a minute. It turns out they went to jail last year for awful things.
Don't do a background check. They know the CEO or they know this person. It's okay, I've also known people who might not pass a background check. We come across a lot of people in life.
Yeah, but I think as well as you've got to. My heart always goes out for people in HR who are just thrown these things and other things constantly day after day after day, and somehow manage to keep it together and be that facilitating, friendly person in a company without just slapping somebody around the face. So I felt seen and heard by that. How about you, Rebecca?
Yeah. Yeah, no, same. And I think there's like the thing that one of my biggest gripes about working in HR is that you're usually the one that gets stuck dealing with other people's like stupidity or childishness or intrusive thoughts showing up in the workplace. And then you're portrayed as the person who's like not fun, the enforcer or whatever like it is. And it's like, I'm not the one who's, causing issues with hiring this person. I'm just saying we have to follow a specific process so that we know that we're covering all of our bases. But like, I'm now seen as the person who's blocking progress. The thing that is sort of like the biggest gripe is when employees do things that they know they shouldn't do because they're looking, because like they know that they're going to get a rise out of someone. Like I saw a post the other day where they had almost like, it was, I forget exactly what they called it, but it was like almost like an in memoriam wall of their coworkers who just been laid off. And they were like, in memoriam of their service to the company. And so they had, pictures of them, they laid flowers down. And I think it was an employment attorney who'd posted it on LinkedIn. And he was like, HR, what would you do? And, naturally HR gets stuck kind of dealing with something like that. But it's like, this is their way of communicating protest to decisions that were made. They know that they're portraying these people as if they're dead, which they're not. They're laid off. But the leaders are basically hiding behind HR instead of addressing the way that people are feeling that makes them want to do this. They're just going to HR and saying, HR, you have to make it stop. And that's the kind of stuff that like we deal with all the time is like employees are trying to express something. They're looking to get a rise out of someone. The leaders who it's actually about won't say anything because they don't want to deal with it. So it gets stuck with HR. And then HR comes in like finger wagging, like, you can't do that. That's not appropriate. And that's what we're known for. And it's just so frustrating.
I feel like HR is like the elementary school teacher of the business world because you have to deal with all kinds of things from literally someone who's misbehaved, like puerile arguments between two people, and then occasionally someone who shit themselves when they shouldn't have done. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it is true. I did have to call in some bathroom incidents when I was working in retail HR. Yeah.
Oh, come on. What can you tell us? Can you tell us anything?
Someone shat on the floor of the employee bathroom. Didn't know who it was, but it wasn't a bathroom that customers could access. So I had to call housekeeping and be like, well, someone who works here just took a dump in the bathroom on the floor. So I need you to come clean it up. It's like, was it a protest? Was it an accident? Like, does this person need help? Was it just whatever? Why didn't they clean it up? Why didn't they call it in? But whoever found it, they called it in and they left a voicemail on the HR, shared services, phone answering machine. And that's how I heard it. So the message had been sitting there probably for 4 or 5 hours before I got to it. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll call housekeeping. It turns out no one else had called housekeeping. Other people had been in that bathroom. All I did was one person called HR, left a voicemail. Everyone else just ignored it. But I'm like, anyone can call housekeeping. Why am I the one that has to do it now? I didn't even know that was there. I don't even use that bathroom. But yeah.
Wow.
Do you have sort of like in the police where Rippy Room go, I'd like to report a code brown or something like that?
No, I mean, I wish we did, but I had to submit a ticket. I had to submit a ticket to housekeeping, be like, I forget. I think I just put someone had an accident. Someone had a bathroom accident in the bathroom. I think I kept it very vague, but I was like, it needs to be cleaned up. And that was how I communicated it.
All
but
right.
it was
wow.
What do you do? Do you say someone shat on the floor? Code brown would probably be better, but we were not that sophisticated at that time.
You have to log that incident, wouldn't you?
Because housekeeping had to track all incidents that they were called in to clean up, just as hey, we're deploying this person to handle this ticket, basically. So I'm I don't know how many others they got.
That
get
poor
all the
person.
time in dressing rooms. People would change their children, they'd change their kids' diapers in the changing rooms and the dressing rooms, and then leave the dirty diapers in the dressing room. That would happen all the time. But it was New York City, Fifth Avenue. Those were customers. It's different. When it was in the employee bathroom, it's this person works here. That's a different level of gross.
Wow.
We need to come back to you and do an entire episode on all the things. Literally tell us the shit that went down. That is incredible. That is great.
Anyway, Emma Jamil. I will leave a link in the show notes. Go and find her on LinkedIn. She's also on Insta, YouTube. She's incredible. It's just so many funny little bits like that. And after that video, I was like, Emma, you need to come on one of our summer episodes. And she was like, hell yeah. So Emma will be with us, telling us all about that video and more in an August episode. So stay posted on that.
Lovely. We may film that from Ibiza or something that we might just...
Emma. It's such a tune as well,
really
though. Like,
is.
it's just a tune.
I want to know if she did it. Rebecca, what have you seen this week?
So I shared this article from The Economist, which is basically about how women's career progress is stalling statistically. And, you know, when I was kind of like up and coming in my HR career, Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In was like a huge book that we were all reading. We were all girl bossing. We were all like, you know, yes, women can do it all. Women can do everything. And what this article shows is that for the second time in 2 years, the pay gap is actually widening between men and women. And it's kind of been accelerating ever since COVID. So there are a lot of different factors that contribute to it. And this isn't even just in the US. Like this is sort of, you know, it's a broad, it's sort of happening everywhere. But what's interesting is that a lot of it comes down to this narrative that I'm wrestling with, where this article says that it's about, are women just like changing their ambitions? Do women just want to stay home with their children instead of, you know, leaning in anymore and going for these like big level jobs? I just think that's a simple way to talk about it, because a lot of times when I've seen, and this is mentioned in the article too, a lot of times like women might be stepping back because the cost of childcare is insane, or if the cost isn't insane, the availability isn't there. So Germany has free childcare, right? But there's something like 300,000 like spots for that. Like there's just an overflow. They don't have enough room for childcare. So what happens? Women stay home with their kids. And for those who choose to do that because that's what they want to do with their life, they should be able to go and do that too. This is more about those that otherwise would have wanted to be executives at Goldman or would have wanted to reach to that, you know, big CEO seat at these big companies. It's kind of one of those things that it's like, it's easy to say that, I don't know, it's easy to say that it's like women losing ambition, but I'm just like, I think there's a bigger conversation happening where we're all thinking about work differently. It's not just women. And we're thinking like, what is it all for? Like, what am I here to do on this earth? Am I here to be the CEO of Goldman Sachs? Or am I here to just show up in the best way that I can for my family, for my friends, to provide? And I just think there's a large shift in how people are thinking about work, but it's showing up the most statistically in how women aren't going into these higher level positions at rates that they used to before. There's a whole layer there about, you know, our current administration here in the US where, you know, they dismantled diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And now it's like considered a faux pas to put a woman up for a job because they think that they're just doing that to hit numbers, which is almost, it's a whole other cyclical debate that grinds my gears, but I'll pause there.
I saw an interview with Jimmy Carr, you know, the comedian who's becoming a bit of a life coach guru.
Jimmy Confucius Carr.
But he said something that I thought was fairly, yeah, it felt right, or it felt like a definite point of reflection. He was asked if women can have it all, and he said yes, but not simultaneously.
Oh.
And I think that's really what is happening, whether it be changes in priorities since the pandemic, just the actual cost of childcare and the cost of everything else going up now financially. It doesn't always make sense for two parents to work. And if a woman has had that break for having children, then the chances are their partner is on a higher salary, whether that be a man or even in, you know, a same-sex marriage. Chances are the person that stayed in work is going to be on a higher salary. So therefore, financially, you take the step back. So I'm not sure. I'm with you, Rebecca. I'm not sure this is fully explained by women taking a empowered, conscious choice to step back. I think there will be a number of those will be the case. I think probably more of a majority will be people that financially can't afford to send, you know, have their kids in childcare all the time. Plus, we're seeing, as you said, there's rollbacks in terms of flexibility, the RTO mandates. We're seeing it's much harder now for women to balance it. That's where, you know, women and people with disabilities or neurodiverse found so much opportunity in the pandemic because there was this big shift towards remote work that's allowed this extraordinary level of flexibility that is now being rolled back and having a massive, massive impact. So I'm not sure it's changing ambitions. I think it's a change of potentially priorities, but also just feasibility. If it's costing
realities.
if it's costing you more money to go out to work and put your kids in childcare, why would anyone choose to do that, even just financially speaking, let alone the sacrifice of doing that and the time you get to spend with your family?
Can I ask a quick question, which is about to get me cancelled? So you're now the new host, but you said, can women have it all, not simultaneously? And this is not me going, oh God, poor men. But you look back from the 60s to maybe the mid-90s, the men didn't have it all. They traditionally didn't have that relationship with their children that the mothers did because they went out to work. So what I'm asking here is not, oh God, poor men, let's feel sorry for them, because that's completely subverting what you're saying there. But nobody seems to be able to have it all. Is that fair? Or please pile on me and tell me how wrong I am. I'm fine with that.
I don't think you are wrong. I think our society is built for a very specific structure. And the way that we work, our relationships with work is specifically built where theoretically you have someone who goes out and makes the money, and then you have someone who maintains the home. Whatever that might look like, whether that involves children or not, or caring for parents, right? Like any version of doing work that you don't get paid for, basically. And that's what our society is designed for. But what I think is like part of what the conversation that we've all been trying to have is like, we've created society. Society is this is a man-made, human-made structure. So if men want to have closer relationships to their children and women want to be able to work, why can't we seem to do the things that change the structure that allow that to happen? Like, that's the part that everybody should be able to have a little bit more and a little bit less of whatever it is that they have to give up to take more on their plate. And I think the issue is that there's no consistent way of sort of sharing, not the burden, but sharing the work, sharing the situation in the way that it would require us to make a lot of changes to make that happen. Remote work, to your point, Leanne, was something that allowed a lot of this to become a lot more possible. But now that that's being rolled back, it makes it a lot harder, which is why people are dropping out of the workforce like this. So it's like, we created this problem. We can fix this problem, but for some reason we're not. And that has to be because someone's making money off of the problem.
Yeah, the social expectation is that women stay home with the children, should that scenario be one that has to happen financially or logistically or whatever else. There is a level of judgment that comes when women don't. But that is also backed up in policy. If we think about, I know in the States it's even a bigger issue, but in the UK we think about maternity and paternity leave. Maternity leave in the UK is actually pretty generous statutory in terms of international standards. It's not bad. Paternity isn't so much. But if you imagine that, I'm thinking like we've got friends now that have not long had a baby and the woman is on maternity leave, which is 9 months, and her husband had 4 weeks paternity and is now back at work. Now, physically speaking, of course, a woman might need longer to get over the physicality of childbirth, but probably only 8 weeks. What happens in a world where you go, as a woman, I would like to transfer my maternity leave to my husband, who will take paternity leave to look after the child for the first 6 months, and I will go back to work. That's not even a conversation that's even possible to have.
Yeah.
So even policy-wise of companies, the expectation is if a child needs extra care, it's a woman that has to do it, with the impact that's going to have on their career.
We have no mandated leave in the US, so we're all on our own.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's even worse. At least we've got the option. But yeah.
I love this. I love this. Right, we need to hear so many more, especially more HR stories. Love that. But also, I love your point of view on everything. We are going to come back after this break with the Truth or Lie segment, where we basically ask something which everyone believes, and Leanne goes and does some research and tells you whether it's true or not. Welcome back to Truth or Lie. This time of the week, we'll take a popular workplace idea and ask if the research really does back it up. Today, we're testing the claim that work and fun don't mix. Leah, I think we've all heard some kind of version of it. You're not paid to have fun.
No, sir.
Rebecca, you've said this, for generations, work has been treated as the serious part of life, whereas fun is what you do after 5 p.m. So if people are laughing or chatting or just generally mucking about, it must mean less work is getting done. Is that right? Lee?
Well, I need to first of all define fun, because if a psychologist can suck anything out of anything, it's the fun out of the room.
That's the least fun thing you've ever said.
So when psychologists research fun at work, they're basically looking at things like joking with colleagues, celebrating successes, maybe taking part in some kind of games or social activities, events, or just simply working in an environment where people are enjoying themselves. So that's what we're looking at when we talk about fun. And when we're talking about whether work and fun mix, we're comparing it with outcomes. So things like productivity, performance, employee engagement, well-being, relationships between colleagues, all the good stuff. So we're clear what fun means and whether it mixes with work. We're on the same psychologist boring page. Yeah?
On the same page.
So in terms of the case for that work and fun don't mix, there is some research done by John Michael, who has been on the show previously.
Oh, we know him. Yeah.
Yeah, with some of his friends. They undertook a review of workplace fun literature in 2018. They pulled together decades of research, and they argue that workplace fun isn't something managers can simply switch on. So employees judge fun at 3 different stages: before an activity starts, while it's happening, and afterwards when they reflect on whether it was worthwhile. Psychologists call this the anticipatory appraisal.
The what, sorry?
I struggle with that word. Anticipatory.
Nice.
Anticipatory.
It's a tough one. That's a tough one. There's a lot of sip-a-tip-a.
And just lots. I struggle with lots of vowels, I think.
Yeah. And also, Rebecca, you Americans like to take vowels out of things. How do you say anticipatory?
Oh, yeah. I would probably be like anticipatory. I don't know. I'd probably say it like that. But like, I would say it so quickly that like you wouldn't even know if I messed it up.
Yeah. That's
my New York act coming in though too. New Yorkers, we just drop things all the time. So it's just like, you fill it in.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I digress. We digress. Anticipatory appraisal. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. They concluded that if people expect an activity to be awkward, childish, or a waste of time, unsurprisingly, they're more likely to resist it. And if it feels forced rather than voluntary, it can create frustration and emotional exhaustion instead of kind of the happy, positive emotions we were hoping for. And that idea does show up in the actual workplace as well. So some researchers called, and I enjoy names, Al, Barbara Plester.
Plester. That's
Barbara
a name.
Plester.
That's a good name.
It's a strong, solid name, isn't it? And Anne Hutchinson spent 4 months in 4 New Zealand-based organisations, and they were observing everyday behaviour, and they interviewed 60-ish employees as well. They found a very clear difference between spontaneous fun that naturally emerged and what they called managed fun. I think if you put managed in front of anything, it ain't fun, but especially in front of fun, it's really not fun, is it?
No.
We always called it forced fun.
Forced fun,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, which is basically, what you're saying, Rebecca, it's activities that were organised by the company. So things like mandatory pyjama days, dressing up as TV characters, things like that, unsurprisingly reviewed as childish, contrived, and at times emotionally invasive. So rather than boosting morale, some employees became cynical, frustrated, and even admitted deliberately calling in sick to avoid taking part.
Guilty.
Yeah.
There is also some evidence that too much fun negatively impacts well-being. So one of the broadest pieces of evidence came from a review in 2021. So rather than carrying out a single experiment, these researchers analysed 326 research papers spanning 40 years in 18 different disciplines. Al, what is that called?
It's called a meta-analysis.
Yes, sir, it is. So they did that to understand what happens when work and leisure become increasingly blurred. And they found that if organisations integrate work and play too closely, employees can struggle to switch off mentally. So rather than helping people recover, highly blended environments can encourage workaholism and create role confusion and make it harder for people to detach from work at the end of the day. So basically, making work feel more like play doesn't mean people are healthy. It's just kind of work follows somehow. And then there are some practical concerns as well. So some other research in 2022, they explored 4 Swedish workplaces designed to be deliberately playful. The ping pong tables and the The slide that Stephen Bartlett famously had in his Manchester office.
Those ping pong tables. I just can't even. I have so many things to say about ping pong tables, but I won't do that here.
Yeah, I know. Well, no, please do. This is exactly the place to do that. But anyway, these types of offices. So through interviews with employees and by observing behaviour as well, they found that while participants like the atmosphere overall, open plan leisure activities, particularly activities like a table tennis setup, created enough noise, surprisingly, to disrupt concentration, with some employees choosing to work from home instead. Participants also questioned whether highly playful workplaces were appropriate in industries where safety, precision, or professionalism were especially important. So yes, there is evidence that work and fun don't always mix, specifically if it feels imposed rather than chosen. It blurs the boundary between work and home, or simply becomes a distraction. It can undermine concentration, recovery, and, as we've heard, an employee's willingness to engage. So far, it sounds like fun and work don't really mix.
Yeah. So, Rebecca, before we go to the against, any thoughts on what we've just heard?
It's one of those things where when you look at something like bringing games into the workplace, like having, ping pong tables, table tennis, like all of that, it just sets this weird sort of expectation where are people playing? Are people able to play? When are they allowed to play? If I'm on a sales call, can you hear it happening in the background? That's the kind of stuff that I had to deal with all the time. Or it kind of like creates this layer of expected ethics or unspoken workplace behaviors where it's like, I had so many times where we had a ping pong table in one of my old companies. The sales manager would come up to me and he would say, why are these two people playing ping pong? So-and-so's behind on his sales goal. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, are they not allowed to play ping pong when they're not behind on their sales goal? Did you tell them that? Did they know that? You're their manager. Why don't you deal with it? It just creates all these other, besides the whole ping pong's annoying thing, it just creates all these other unspoken workplace behaviors that people are judged by without that expectation actually being clearly communicated. But maybe that's my non-fun take on fun.
Well, I get this. And also it brings back, for certain people, like myself, brings back into a school situation where there were the sporty, cool kids who could play ping pong. And then there's me who would try and hit the ball, trip over my own shoelaces and end up just falling on my ass. And so it just, same with like non-uniform day at school. And then also if you wear a uniform, you can bring in whatever you wear at home. Then you get judged on what you're wearing at home. And I turned up in my £3 Walmart trainers and everyone's like, oh, look, he's got no money, which was actually true at the time. But it's just a whole like thing, isn't it, Lee?
There is nothing more stressful than a no clothes day.
Yeah.
I just think schools should have a uniform and just remove that
100%.
level of peer pressure and no.
Especially when you're not cool.
Yeah, it's like me.
Yeah, and me. Not like Rebecca. She's
Rebecca.
exceptionally cool.
Anyway. Same. I wore uniforms growing up in school and I loved it. And then whenever it was like, don't wear a uniform day, I was like so stressed out about it because I was never one of the cool kids. I was never ever like, it wasn't even about like who could afford what. It was about what was your sense of style? What was your taste? And I was like, I don't really know. And then it became a whole thing where it's like, oh, you're wearing that? I'm like, I thought this is what we were wearing. And they're like, this is what you were wearing last year. I mean, there's famously teenage girls are not very nice to each other. So I experienced a lot of that. I'm like, this would have been great if we just wore uniforms again.
Yeah, definitely.
I never thought about that actually. As a boy, like a 13-year-old boy, there's certain it was quite stressful. But I imagine a 13-year-old girl, it would be a million times more stressful.
The worst. I'll never forget when low-rise jeans started becoming popular and I didn't know. So I came to school with like mid-rise jeans and everyone else is wearing these like super low-rise jeans that I've never been able to pull off. And they were like, you're dressed like a mom. I'm like, what? What do you mean? And my butt crack's not hanging out and yours is. Like, why is that? Why am I the weird one?
Low-rise was a tough time.
I don't know what that is.
And they're back and I hate it.
I know.
I don't understand what it is.
You know how in the noughties where you'd always see basically they'd look at the back of a woman's jeans, you'd see the top of her like knickers or
I was very respectful. I never looked below the shoulders. That was me. Anyway.
Well played.
Bring back the whale tail, but
what the hell's a what? No, never mind. No. We're going down.
Different podcast.
Right. Different podcast, different audience. Lee, What's the argument against?
So the argument against starts with the argument that forced fun isn't really fun at all.
I'm with that.
Yeah, I think it says it all really, doesn't it? So yes, employees do dislike company organised activities like mandatory pyjama days or dressing up. The New Zealand research that we just heard about also concluded that spontaneous humour between colleagues has the opposite effect. So after spending 4 months observing these workplaces and interviewing employees, the researchers found that joking together gave people a mental break from demanding work, helped them recharge and strengthened relationships within teams. And quite interestingly, the researchers also found that employees could dislike the work itself, but feel highly engaged with the organisation because of the social environment around them.
Oh.
That finding runs through some wider research that was conducted in 2020, or is a review in 2020. They examined 11 of the most common myths about workplace fun, including the idea that work and fun don't mix. So looking across decades of research, they found very little evidence to support that belief. So instead, the literature consistently linked workplace fun with high energy, greater creativity, stronger attendance, increased loyalty, and better organisational performance. That review also challenged the idea that fun has to be expensive or carefully planned. They pointed out that around 80% of workplace humour and laughter happens spontaneously, suggesting again that the most effective fun is often the kind that develops naturally rather than being organised by management. But what happens when organisations do introduce something more structured? Well, some researchers looked at exactly this in 2014, and they followed more than 230 salespeople at a technology company. And it was over 2-3 weeks. One group took part in a basketball-themed sales game. Another simply saw a public leaderboard showing sales ranking, and a third group carried on as normal. The employees who embraced the game experienced significantly higher positive emotions, so feeling very, very happy, much higher than other groups, but simply displaying performance rankings without the playful elements actually reduced performance. So the research concluded that it wasn't competition that exactly made the difference, it was the experience of play and providing employees with that experience, so long as they genuinely bought into it. And finally, the benefits don't have to come from organised activities at all. According to a systematic review in 2023, they looked at something many managers might discourage, brief periods of personal internet use during the workday. Is that okay? I don't know. But the research found, and this is from around the world, that these micro breaks, whether it be looking at YouTube or browsing online or playing a quick computer game, help to restore attention and mental energy. And one study even found employees who took moderate digital breaks were 9% more productive than those that didn't. The key, though, was moderation. Once those breaks exceeded around 12% of the working day, they became counterproductive.
Interesting. By the way, if anyone's listening and they want to know how to be funny at work without going to HR, then go to episode 269 with Beth Sherman, and she explains exactly how to do that. Lee, can we go to Rebecca and get her thoughts at this point?
Well, we reckon truth or lie, work and fun don't mix.
So I think it's a lie with a caveat. So have you heard the term social effervescence?
Say more.
So I read about it first in the New York Times, which sounds so obnoxious of me to say. But
can I just read, just in case anyone didn't hear about that, you wrote about it first in the New York Times might be the greatest sentence.
Read about it. Didn't write about it.
I will take that out. I apologize. I thought you said you wrote about it, and I thought, oh my God, that's awesome.
No, that would be a flex. I would definitely mention that way earlier.
So you read about it in the New York Times.
I read about it in the New York Times. It was an article that came out around, I think it was 2021. So it was sort of a social article talking about what we were missing from the pandemic. So what was sort of the impacts that we were feeling? Why was loneliness, becoming such a thing that we were all experiencing more, even though in a lot of ways we're more connected than ever. But they introduced the term social effervescence, which is essentially the concept of when people are in a group together, whether they know each other or not, and they just start playing off of each other. They start either teasing or bouncing ideas off of each other, or just inserting each other in conversations, asking each other questions, just like, if you were an apocalypse, what role would you play? Would you be the fighter? Would you be the hunter? Like, what would you do? Just introducing these types of kind of pieces where people can just bounce off of each other, that's considered social effervescence. So when in this research, Leanne, that you mentioned, the moments where it's mentioned that fun is sort of appropriate for work, I would call that social effervescence. All of the footage that we're seeing about fans enjoying the World Cup together, the rowing, everybody rowing, everybody sort of like bantering with each other, that's social effervescence. That's just people experiencing a shared moment together and organically just finding ways to enjoy it together and finding ways to contribute to it together. And that to me is where work can be fun, but it has to happen organically. The thing about social effervescence is it doesn't start with a corporate icebreaker. It doesn't start with a pizza party. It starts with a group of people who feel like they can trust their environment and they trust each other. And it's more a result of a really healthy environment that people are in, where it actually allows them to kind of bring some of their guard down, let some of their own humor in, and form connections, genuine, vulnerable connections. Vulnerable meaning even just laughter. Like laughter can be very vulnerable when it's like real, genuine, and authentic. But you can't orchestrate that without orchestrating a culture of trust that rewards that, or at least that allows that to happen.
Yeah, I think I think you're right. It's a truth of the caveat, or it's kind of like we don't really know, or neither. I think essentially, as you kind of said there, we're kind of asking the wrong question, because as you say, Rebecca, it's much more organic, it's much more spontaneous, and that is where these relationships are nurtured. And we know relationships are one of the biggest, drivers of all the good stuff in the workplace. In terms of the evidence, it doesn't suggest that work and fun don't mix, but it also doesn't show that simply adding fun makes organizations more successful. And there's a few problems. Psychologists, as I kind of mentioned at the top, that we're measuring lots of different things under the umbrella of fun, whether it be humor, whether it be organized social events, gamification, digital breaks, enjoying the work itself. Those aren't the same experience. So surprisingly, we're not finding any consistent results when looking at them. But what does seem remarkably consistent is that forced fun rarely works. Rarely works. So these structured activities only really succeed when employees genuinely buy into them. And that's difficult because fun is subjective. One person's brilliant team building exercise, the dressing up the pajama day, is going to be the reason that another person calls in sick. So I think perhaps a more interesting finding is that the strongest results come from workplaces where fun, exactly as you said, Rebecca, emerges naturally. It's the places with good relationships, with psychological safety, with autonomy, with mutual respect. They tend to have more laughter, more spontaneous humor, and better outcomes. So yeah, fun probably isn't the thing that organizations should try to create, but it is a thing that will appear if you've got all the human stuff right.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Links, I'm guessing, to all of these complicated studies are in the show notes.
Indeed they are.
Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, so it's on to my favourite time of the week. It's time for the world famous weekly workplace surgery where I put your questions to Leanne. So Leanne.
And Rebecca.
Yes. Oh, yes, you're right. These are going to Rebecca today.
Yay.
No, absolutely. So
I'm just here to listen.
you can sit back, have a cup of tea. Don't worry, Rebecca's got this. She's got this. So we have 3 questions here from listeners. I will read them out, and Rebecca will give us her answer. Rebecca, people will be loving you by this point, or if they don't, they'll have turned off. But if they love you at this point, how do they learn more about you? Where's your podcast? Tell me everything about you.
Yes. So you can find me on my podcast, HR Voices, where we dissect real workplace scenarios with actual people leaders who have been dealing with this kind of stuff for years and years and years. It's a podcast where we talk through, here's a crazy thing that's happening at work. How would you handle it? And so it's kind of a lot like this. It's all about human judgment, discernment, taking things and really kind of applying a microscopic lens to see how the right scenario might meet the right resolution, if there even is a right resolution.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. So HR Voices, definitely go and subscribe to that today. Okay, so on to question number 1. The title of this I've written down is, should a manager judge an employee's private social media? But I tell you what, it is a lot more juicy than that. So this person writes, I recently discovered that one of my employees has a public Instagram account where he follows a huge amount of adult content. Sorry, I'm trying to keep a straight face here. This is a serious matter. It doesn't break any company rules, and he's an excellent employee, but another colleague brought it to my attention. Should this influence how I see him as a manager? Or basically, is his private social media none of my business? Rebecca.
This is one of those scenarios where you've seen it, you know this, it is influencing how you see him as a manager, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? That's called your intrinsic bias. It's coming in, you're making a judgment about this person based on something that you see. That's okay. The reason you're even asking this question is because you must feel some kind of a way and you're trying to digest that and figure out what to do with that, right? Which you've come to the right place because this is basically what HR does day in and day out, is helping people to kind of uncouple and talk through what their initial reactions and biases might be so that you're in a situation where it makes more sense for the workplace. So it's going to change how you see him as a person, whether or not, like, no matter how you want to think about that, right? Because it's just natural for us to kind of make judgments about different things. It's about what we do with those judgments at work that really, really matters. So, if it is his private social media and it is something that has nothing to do with work, my question is always going to be something like, could this account ever be tied to him at work in some way or another? Because there is a way that your colleague obviously found this account, right? So there is some sort of a connection to this person. So it could kind of thread into this does kind of show up at work, even if it's not technically social media that's associated with work. So because of that, I think that this warrants a conversation. When someone's a leader, someone's a manager, they're responsible for other people, right? And how they're seen, how they're perceived matters when they're in charge of other people, because it's not just about the people who report to them. It's about the people who they report to and how you're basically endorsing this person as a leader and as an employee. So not necessarily that you're asking for what to do about this, because it's hard to kind of, tell you what I can't tell you what to think. But what I would say is it warrants a conversation with him to say, this is the thing. Like I've now become aware that this exists. I don't know if you're aware that other people might be able to see this too. You might want to think about privacy settings, or you might want to think about making it less easy to find. What you do in your own time and in your own business, that's up to you. But it's now something that's more visible to other people, and that could influence people consciously or unconsciously in how they see you and your progression as a leader. And as much as that sucks, that's just the truth of the way that this is. And you can choose what you want to do with that as the person who has the private social media that they might not want other people to see. Because I also try to assume good intent, right? Like, this person might not even realize that his account's public, or you might not even realize that he can be found. So, like, the unfortunate truth is that no one's really anonymous on the internet anymore. So just assume that whatever you do can be found by someone who's looking for it. But it never hurts to just bring it to the person's attention at hand and then navigate it with them. You don't want it to become just like a gossip situation, which is kind of how this started.
Yeah, totally agree. I read something, this is slightly incidental, but I think related. I read something the other day that someone's mother, who was in their like 70s, they'd just got a new WhatsApp account and they'd noticed it was groups, and they thought it was a way to group their contacts. So they created a group called Not Important, a group called I Don't Like, a group called, and added all of their contacts to it. And it's just one of those things that just makes you cringe so hard, doesn't it? And it's very, very good chance. It feels to me there's a 90% chance this person doesn't know that anyone else can see what they follow, because that doesn't seem like a thing that most people would expect to be online.
Yeah. Digital literacy. It's important. Know how these things work and what happens when you do different things on these platforms.
Absolutely. Okay, so on to question number 2. It's all about workplace relationships. This person writes, I've been casually seeing someone at work for about a year, and until now we've worked on different departments, but I've just been promoted and will be managing their department. Now, I'm guessing that the subtext of this is that this their partner is or in that department. So should I tell my employer about the relationship or keep it private unless it becomes an issue? This sounds a little technical. Rebecca, talk us through it.
This is one of those situations where I'm going to give an HR answer and say it depends. But it's going to depend on what your company's policy is about workplace dating, if they have one. So if there is a policy about workplace dating where you do have to disclose, then that's a pretty straightforward, like, yes, you have to. What I found in my experience is that workplace dating policies tend to be a little bit open-ended and vague and tough to interpret until they can become weaponized. So until they do become a bigger issue. And when you're looking at the reason that this is kind of complicated and hairy is that you're now looking at power dynamics. So you're dating someone who now has power over you, and that person with power can show favoritism, or they can, let's say you break up and they decide that they want to fire you and they can just retaliate, right? Not saying that any of this is okay, but this is what happened. This is why workplace relationships can be complicated, is because of that power dynamic that's involved in it. So as the HR person, I am always an advocate for disclose. Just disclose, because you'd rather disclose before there's an issue so that your record is clean in ways, and you can say, well, HR knew about this, or my leader knew about this. It's documented. We can put rules in place and how we can interact with certain things. Like, sometimes HR will say that if a manager is trying to promote someone that they're dating, they have to have additional authority from their manager to approve it, where they wouldn't necessarily with someone else, or that they just have sort of a practice of getting double approvals before promotions, just to kind of show that these decisions are made, they're consistent, they're not showing any type of favoritism. But I would say disclose, because you don't want to wait until it becomes an issue, because that's a terrifying statement as an HR person. Like, what do you mean we're going to hold off on something until it's an issue? That doesn't need to become maybe the big issue that it ultimately does become. So it's always in your best interest to just know that you've got your ducks in a row. You've got yourself covered. You've disclosed it, and then you might even want to disclose if things change. So you don't necessarily have to tell HR every single stage of your relationship, right? You don't have to say, we're moving in together, we're engaged, we're married. It doesn't have to be at that level, but you do have to, it could be in your favor to disclose that you're dating. And then if that ends, disclose that too. Say, we're no longer dating. We're now just people, or whatever, whatever that might be. Because the other side of this, I know this is kind of a long-winded answer, but HR has so many different kind of layers. The other side of this that you want to think about and get ahead of is, if this relationship does end, and let's say you don't want to manage this person anymore, HR can usually help you find an alternative. You can, they can talk to you about it and say, maybe there's another team that you can manage. Maybe you can transfer to another location. There are usually options to you that HR can help you navigate. You don't have to go right to quitting your job because you're no longer dating the person who who you were managing. So the earlier you disclose this stuff, the more of a partnership you have, the less likely something becomes a big issue, and the more support you have as that relationship may change for the worse, right?
Absolutely. And so what we're saying is, step one, check the policy, because if it is dead against that, then that might change your decision of which one of those you're going to go for. And secondly, disclose, if that sounds good. Lee, anything to add?
Just that this is the simplest, best possible point to have this conversation, because you've been having a relationship that didn't matter because you weren't in the same departments, there wasn't a hierarchy involved. Maybe you do have a policy, you meant to disclose it at the time. I don't think there'll be that much beef about it, because there wasn't really any kind of, as Rebecca said, power dynamics at that point going on. So now is a really easy point to have this conversation and just protect everyone in that situation, because breakups can be messy. Breakups can bring up a lot of different emotions and reactions, and it could be in 3 months' time, it could be in 6 years' time, when there's all sorts of other dynamics involved. So have the conversation now, be transparent about it, get the guidance of HR, and you're starting off on the best possible foot.
I think people need to go and listen to your podcast right now. No, not right now, because we've got one last question. And so we get a lot of questions around about toxic managers. We've had toxic superstars. We've had toxic co-workers. Never had one like this. What do you do when the toxic person is the founder? So this person says, the founder of our company regularly sends abusive messages, publicly belittles senior leaders, and has created a culture where people are afraid to challenge him. Good people are leaving, but there's no board, and there's no one willing to stand up to him because he owns the business. So I'm part of the senior leadership team. I hate to see what he's doing to this company, but realistically, Rebecca, does this person have any options to save the company?
Culture comes from the top. So this is the culture of the company. The bullying, the toxic leadership. This is the culture that the founder has created and seems to be dead set on maintaining. I'm of the firm belief that if your founder is toxic and there's no one to keep that person in check, if you're not up for what they're asking you to do, or if you don't like the way they lead or operate, you're better off going somewhere else. I want to say, like, yes, we can change, we can do this, we can do that. But the truth of it is, if the person who is the most in charge and has no oversight over them, has no interest in changing, it's a fool's errand, and you're just going to be wasting your energy to make that person rich.
I'm curious, Lee, why would someone who's built a company that's dependent on employees to make them money treat them really badly? What's going on in their head?
You're assuming that's their intention.
Good point.
It might well be. It could just be a narcissistic arsehole that treats people horribly. It's more than likely, and what I see more often than not, is founders that find themselves as an accidental MD, an accidental people leader who are very used to be strong individual contributors who suddenly have people that they need to motivate and delegate to and coordinate. And often they don't have the skills to do that, nor the interest to do that. And that's why typically with larger organizations, even larger, small organizations, you'll see somebody else there to hold them accountable, whether it be a chair, whether it be a really strong COO or operations director. You'll see a leadership team that has equal levels of accountability around this type of thing. I think the only thing that I'm with Rebecca, I don't think this is a scenario that you're going to be able to fix, you're going to be able to change. A founder like this, particularly if they're not aware to it and show no willingness to get any type of feedback on this. I mean, if nobody's ever told them, maybe give them the benefit of the doubt and have a conversation and go, just so you know, that message came off as a little bit aggressive. Is this the intention you meant when you said that? Was that the outcome you were hoping for? You seem really frustrated at the minute by how things are working in the organization. There's something we could change today that would make things better for you over the next few months. These types of coaching questions in the conversation might give you an indication of where their intent lies, how open they are to coaching, how open they are to developing themselves. But I'm with Rebecca where it kind of, the way the question is worded, sounds that that's unlikely. So I think the only other thing, you didn't say what your role is in the senior leadership team. The only other thing that might be worth just looking at is what your obligations are as a leader in that business. So for example, if you're the ops director and people and culture lies under your remit, you might want to have a conversation about these bullying type behaviors. Should somebody bring a formal complaint about that, it is your obligation professionally to make the founder aware that this behavior isn't acceptable within terms of the law, and somebody might make a formal complaint or raise this in a way that is going to cause a lot of problems for the organization, its performance, and its teams as well. That might be the only thing to do. You can judge this because you know the founder in question. But I think these things are always worth a conversation if you think there could be an element that they don't intend to behave this way, or they don't imagine their behavior as having the impact in the way that they thought. If you don't believe that at all, you just think they're just not a people person, then I think Rebecca's right. Just walk away once your professional obligations are dealt with.
And also, this person's seems really passionate about the company, don't they? They're not just saying, how do I protect myself? They're like, how do I save this organization? So maybe they've been there from the beginning, and this behavior is relatively new, which would suggest that perhaps there's a little bit of pressure, perhaps there's a bit of financial pressure, perhaps they're going through their exiting and they don't know quite how to communicate that to the rest of the team. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's lots of context that we're missing here, aren't we? But I think Rebecca and I are on the same page that, chances are you're not going to be able to fundamentally change the situation or this founder. But there's a glimmer of hope, as Al said, if things used to be different, or there's even a hint that it might not be intentional, it could be worth a conversation. But even if that is the case, as Rebecca said, it's still on this founder to actually do the work and either put somebody else in charge of people or change and go through that development, which is going to be a long road anyway. So I think you read that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
Yeah.
It depends how many fucks you've got in that bucket right now. If you've got enough, go for it. If not, maybe just leave it.
Absolutely.
It's like the question of just like, what's the point, right? So it's like, if your point is that you believe in the mission of the company, if the point is, you're doing good work that impacts a lot of people and that there's a lot more good that can be done, again, in spite of this particular situation, then like, go for it. If that's not the case, then, like you said, Leanne, like maybe don't give a fuck.
I think that they might be the first F-bombs as well, weren't we? Very well behaved.
I know, very well.
Yeah, I'm actually very proud of us.
I know. And that was in the context of a book title, so I don't think it counts. Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fine.
Okay, superb. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you, Leanne, but you don't need thanks because you're part of this podcast. Rebecca didn't need to be here and she's not even getting any money for it. But, just that. Hopefully that's not news to you, Rebecca.
No. I mean, I'm just so glad that we were able to do this. Thank you so much for having me and for just being able to talk through this stuff together. I feel like we never spend enough time together. So I'm just going to keep crashing your podcast so you hang out with me. And I guess that's just the way we have to do this.
Love it.
I'm in. Let's do it.
100% crash anytime. Go and subscribe to HR Voices wherever you get your podcasts. Go and look at All Voices. Is it allvoices.co.co?
Allvoices.co.
Yep, go and have a look at that. Fantastic. We've had Jeffrey Firmin on before. Twice, I think. One on. Let me just double check my memory, i.e. my notes. Episode 285. Jeffrey Firmin was the guy who built Office Vibe and how you hear his entire story, how Leanne was very rude to him on LinkedIn and how he decided to come on and talk and then start his new venture. So definitely.
And now we're kind of friends.
Yeah, I'm more than friends.
I think so.
He called you cool. And, and Jeffrey's cool AF.
Jeffrey's super cool. Jeffrey's like my better half on this team. He's amazing.
So go check out Rebecca on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening. Next Thursday, we're joined by Ellie Glasson. Ellie Glasson, you may not have heard of her. In fact, there's a very good chance you've not heard of her, but you will 100% have heard of the people that she represents. She's a PR wizard. The majority of great guests we've had on this podcast have had something tangential? Is that a word, Rebecca? Can I say that?
Can you say genitals?
Tangentially.
That's the word I'm looking
genitals.
for. She tangentially connected is all through Ellie, which she's going to give us an absolute masterclass in PR, but not just PR, just like ethical PR. It's not about shouting. That's her message. So come and join us on Thursday. Join us next week for, sadly, just us two, but we've then got, I think, can we mention
Is it time?
BW?
Yeah.
BW? God, BY. Bill Yost is joining us in 2 weeks' time. The Bill Yost. Yes, the guy with the pirate flag from LinkedIn. He's our co-host. And then we're going on to August, which is a little bit silly. And I think we might see if Rebecca's knocking about and fancies a virtual beer. Maybe a bit of a chat.
Maybe.
So anyway, just definitely go and check out Rebecca, check out HR Voices, check out All Voices. And if you haven't subscribed to this podcast, then you should probably do that now. Lee, anything to add before we go?
Just the usual, head over to LinkedIn. That's where the conversation continues. Check out the Instagram. Been putting some more clips on there as well, on the TikTok. Go and have a look at that. Subscribe, review. It really does make a difference. And thank you for all the lovely comments we're getting on Spotify at the minute.
Yeah.
I'm loving the questions. I'm loving the insights. I'm loving people sharing other different articles or things that they've seen. It is brilliant. Keep it coming. We love it.
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Honestly,
we love you.
We do love you. We do love you in an appropriate amount. Thank you.
Yes.
The way HR would approve of.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll disclose our relationship.